Goblin launch detected.
Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's patron shoutout goes to Coral. Thanks Coral for supporting me through Patreon. In today's game, Ian, Mika, and Maximus rejoin me, with Ian playing his Rasaad and Dungeon Delver deck. He keeps Radiant Solar, Refuse to Yield, Plains, Island, Swords to Plowshares, Eccentric Apprentice, and Path of Ancestry. Mika is playing his Ninth Doctor Adric deck, keeping Command Tower, TARDIS, Sulphur Falls, Sphinx of the Second Sun, Island, Dominus of Fealty, and a Mountain. Max is playing his Xyris deck, keeping 2 mountains, Forest, Swiftfoot Boots, Cultivate, Hunted Dragon, and a Treacherous Terrain. Last but not least, a lot of people have asked to see it again. I'm playing my Myrkul deck, keeping Isolated Chapel, Sterling Grove, Overgrown Tomb, Life's Legacy, Utopia Sprawl, Temple Garden, and a Forest. Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused Magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Ian wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a Plains. Mika's got an island for turn. Maximus draws, plays a forest, and passes. I play a tapped Temple Garden and pass after that. Ian's got an island for turn, and he casts his commander enchantment, Dungeon Delver. Mika draws and plays a Sulphur Falls, and then pays 2 for a TARDIS. Maximus has a forest for turn, and also pays 2 but for Swiftfoot Boots instead. I play an Isolated Chapel, and tap my Temple Garden for a green to cast a Utopia Sprawl onto it. I pick black as I do, and pass after that. Ian draws and plays a Plains. He then casts Dragon's Eye Savants and passes to Mika. Mika plays a Command Tower, and then casts the Ninth Doctor. He's got haste, so he swings him at me, and I take 2, and Mika passes. Maximus has a forest for turn, and casts Cultivate, passing while searching for a basic for the field and 1 for his hand. I also play a forest, and pay 3 mana but for a Fabro Elder, and I pass back to Ian. Ian's got a Plains for turn, and he casts his commander. He swings his Dragon's Eye Savants at me, and with nothing else, he passes. Mika plays a mountain for turn, and then crews up the TARDIS and swings it at Ian. Ian takes the 2, and after combat, Mika casts Adric. He gets to Cascade from the TARDIS, and after some time, eventually flips into a Soul Ring and then passes. Maximus draws, plays a mountain, and then casts a Hunted Dragon. As it enters, he has Ian make some night tokens and passes after that. I draw and play a Woodland Cemetery. I then cast a Llanowar Elves and follow up with Sterling Grove and pass to Ian. Ian plays a tap Path of Ancestry, and then goes to combat. He swings the Dragon's Eye Savants at Mika, who declares no blocks. Ian then casts Refuse to Yield, which pumps the Savants up to 13 points worth of damage, which Mika then takes. With nothing else, Ian passes. Mika draws and plays an island. He once more crews up the TARDIS with the Doctor, and he swings it at Ian. Ian responds by casting Swords to Plowshares on it, but Mika still gets his on-attack trigger from the TARDIS. This means that when Mika casts Dominus of Fealty in his post-combat main phase, he gets to Cascade, revealing until he hits a Fire Diamond. He then passes to Max. Max has a Forest return, and casts Gate to Aether, and then passes to me. On my upkeep, I reveal Devoted Druid to the Gate trigger, put it into play, and draw. I then play an overgrown tomb, taking 2 so it comes in untapped, and then cast Myrkul and pass. Ian reveals an island off the top, and gets to put it into play thanks to the gate, and he then draws for turn. He casts a Goliath Paladin, and takes the initiative, going into his library and getting to find 2 basics thanks to Dungeon Delver. Ian then goes to combat, and swings out at me, doubling his toughness with Rasaad. I then chump the Dragon's Eye Savants with my devoted Druid, and take the rest. With the Druid dying, it gets exiled, and comes back as an enchantment thanks to Myrkul, and Ian then passes turn. Mika gets 2 upkeeps thanks to the Doctor, and reveals an island from the first gate to the Aether trigger, and with his Dominus trigger, tries to steal my Sterling Grove. I respond by sacrificing it, going to find Eidolon Blossoms and putting it on top. He then reveals a Scalding Tarn to the second gate, and seals Devoted Druid on the second upkeep, and then draws for turn. Going to combat, he swings the Dominus at Ian to take the initiative, and he grabs an island. He then plays it in the second main phase. Mika continues by making an infinite ring with the Devoted Druid, and he casts an Armageddon Clock, and then plays Descent into Avernus, and then the Sphinx the Second Sun. I should say an aside, we do realize that Mika would have had to cast the Sphinx before combat, but he had infinite mana and could have done so, and we just made a mistake with the sequencing. He then follows it up with Legacy's Allure, and then Dragon Master Outcast. He then cracks the Tarn to find a land, and copies his Sphinx of the Second Sun trigger with Adric. Mika then goes to his beginning phase again, flipping a mountain off the gate to the Aether trigger, and stealing Myrkul, and then dealing 3 to each of us with the Armageddon Clock, plus the Descent into Avernus, as we make 2 treasures. He also gets to scry 2 from the initiative, make a dragon, and then moves to his second beginning step, and then gets to do it all again. This time Mika reveals Court of Embereth, and then steals one of Ian's treasures with the Dominance, but Ian sacrifices it in response. We then each take 6 total because of the Descent and Armageddon Clock, and make 4 more treasures. Mika also moves into the next room, goading the Hunted Dragon with the initiative. He then puts another counter onto Legacy's Allure, and makes another dragon token, and then draws a 3rd time, and then moves to his end step, drawing from being the Monarch and passing. Maximus reveals Rites of Flourishing off the gate to Aether, puts it into play, and then draws. He plays a mountain, and then casts Pendant of Prosperity and gives it to Ian. Ian activates it immediately, and he and Max each get to draw a card. Max then follows up with a Hunted Troll, and gives the fairy tokens to Ian as well. He then casts Xyris, and moves the Swiftfoot Boots onto it. Going to combat, Max swings the Hunted Dragon at me, and Xyris at Ian. I get taken out, and Ian and Max both draw 3, with Maximus making 3 snake tokens as well. With nothing else, Max passes. Ian reveals an Aegis Turtle off the gate to Aether trigger, and then draws a card from Rites of Flourishing and for turn. He plays a Plains and Command Towers as lands for turn, and casts a Wave of Reckoning. This wipes away most of Mika's board, and Ian then follows up with an Underseller Sweep, taking the initiative again, and getting to put 4 +1/+1 counters onto Rasaad with the 2 triggers. With those triggers targeting Rasaad though, Mika responds by sacrificing Legacy's Allure, and steals Ian's commander. Afterwards, Ian activates Pendant of Prosperity, and he and Max both draw a card and put a land into play. He then passes, with Mika casting a Braid during his end step to finish off the Goliath Paladin, which has already had 3 damage on itself because of Wave of Reckoning. Mika reveals Shrine of Boundless Growth off the gate, puts it into play, and then deals 9 to everyone between Armageddon Clock and Descent into Avernus, and everyone makes 6 treasures. Mika then makes a Knight token, and deals 3 to everyone with the Court of Embereth trigger, and then draws 2. In his main phase, he then casts a Sky Diamond and goes to combat. He swings Rasaad at Ian, who chumps with the Aegis Turtle. Mika then follows up with Power of Fire, enchanting the Doctor with it, and then draws from being the Monarch as he passes turn. Maximus reveals Humble Defector off the gate trigger, putting it to play, and then drawing 2. He plays 2 mountains for turn, and casts a Heartwood Storyteller. He then casts Treacherous Terrain, which has Mika responding with a Chaos Warp and targets one of his own lands, to try and take him out of lethal range. Ian still dies though, unfortunately, and once Mika reveals not a land, he drops to 1. Maximus then casts a Molten Primordial, and Mika decides to go out on his own terms by pinging himself with the Doctor, knowing when he's beat. Game review time. This game was 51 minutes and 22 seconds, and it was probably for the best that I got taken out when I did. Unfortunately, Myrkul is a very strong deck, and having Devoted Druid already as an enchantment token is just asking for trouble. I didn't have an automatic win in my hand, but I had a bunch of draw spells, and honestly it felt like a win was inevitable if I got to untap. Mika's Ninth Doctor and Adric deck continue to go off even stronger and stronger than the games before it, and this time I felt like it was really on the cusp of winning. That Armageddon clock and the descent into Avernus was putting a huge ticking time bomb on everyone, and unfortunately Mika didn't have any reliable way, in hand at least, to gain life again. That being said, he still had enough dragons and other creatures to probably win if he'd been able to go one more turn. Maximus's Xyris deck is actually a Temur group hug deck, and he tends to make people get a lot of advantage and lands, which, as we saw, pays off really well for him since he tries to kill everyone with treacherous terrain. Yes, I did say a group hug deck with a finisher, and I think more people should be doing this. Rasaad and Dungeon Delver was an interesting combination. I love dungeons and the initiative, so I was already interested, but seeing all those giant creatures with toughness smashing face was even cooler. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.